The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager.
Here's our live look at Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is trading at $44,577. Bitcoin is down about 3.5% over the past 24 hours. And the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is at $3,098. Ooh, flirting with that $4,000 line. Down, nevertheless, 3.8% over the past 24 hours. And the new DFX CoinDesk DeFi index is trading at 665. DeFi is down about 6%. And joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is eToro US Managing Director Guy Hirsch. Welcome, Guy. So we've been seeing this big run-up in the crypto markets all week long. Now it appears a dip is in the making. Is it just profit-taking momentarily, or will we see a higher high later down the line?
Hi, pleasure to be with you. So yeah, I think this is a profit taken over the surge we've seen in past few days. And what's fascinating is that this surge is happening in conjunction with the infrastructure bill that is going through the motions in the U.S. Senate and U.S. House of Representatives. So I think that is fascinating. But yeah, I think that we're still bullish in terms of what will happen with the crypto markets until the end of the year. And so we feel it's just a slight bump, and we have a more kind of a brighter future till the end of the year.
So you just touched on my favorite market topic of the past week or so, which is exactly what you just said. Why are we seeing a surge with this infrastructure bill, which crypto advocates are calling like a huge disaster for the U.S. crypto industry? They didn't get what they wanted. Can you break this down for us? On the surface, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? This is a negative headline. It's a negative regulatory headline. Why is the crypto market reacting in the opposite direction? Why are we seeing a surge?
I think that's truly fascinating, and I think it points to the fact that crypto is a global phenomenon. And so even if the world's only superpower, the US, is taking or about to take some adverse measures against the industry, and we hope obviously that it will be remedied through the reconciliation process between the House and the Senate, that investors and the market are thinking that there are still a lot of good things that are happening. Other jurisdictions are opening up more to crypto, and there's a lot of chatter about adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender in more countries. More institutional investors are getting into the space. So I think that the world is looking at it and say, look, this is not a US market, this is a global market, and overall things are looking optimistic. So why won't we invest? Why won't we buy more?
So Guy, we saw some interesting things happening in the markets in terms of flows into and out of exchanges. Last week we saw several, we saw several departures, if you will, of Bitcoin from the exchanges. That was along with the run up in price, and now overnight, particularly, we saw a lot of, or actually in the past 24 hours, we saw a lot go back on the exchanges to the likes of Coinbase. What caused the initial removal of Bitcoin from the exchanges, particularly like in Asia and things like that? Was there anything specific that we know about it? Any catalyst as to why Bitcoin was leaving the exchanges last week, and why they're coming back on this week besides profit taking?
So I can only obviously guess, but I would say that whenever you have a regulatory action such as what's happening right now, maybe some people are worried about keeping it on exchanges or centralized exchanges and taking it off, taking it to private wallets, just taking some sort of a precaution. That may explain it. And then when they see that it's not maybe as bad as they thought, or maybe when more context is brought into the conversation, then you see activity back on these exchanges. I think that is one way to look at it. There might be some other explanations. And generally, when we look at prices, also kind of on-chain analysis, an indicator of price movements, we like to think or look more on sentiment analysis to try to understand what the market really thinks as a better indicator of price movements.
Do you think that any issues with Binance might have had some something to do with some of those Bitcoin leaving the exchanges at least last week, or what's happening now? Do you think that any issues or any concerns regarding Binance may have outweighed any particular issue in the U.S.? And so different kind of ways to deal with that problem with Binance would have taken place that would have outweighed any concerns happening with the U.S.
I think that generally speaking, whenever you have a major player facing some sort of an issues, that it might have some negative impact on the market. But conversely, I mean, in contrast to that, we saw the industry coming together in light of what is happening in the Senate, including Binance, including us, including other players, and coming together as an industry. And I thought that was somewhat of a good moment, in contrast to maybe some other news about industry players coming together, trying to play by the rules, trying to work with regulators and lawmakers to make the industry overall just better.
So just to follow up on this question, you're right. Like in theory, like the crypto is bigger than any one country. But why do the markets react so much more dramatically every time China has a crackdown? Right? China has regulatory crackdowns, and we see an immediate impact on the price. It's often short term, but we still see the impact, much larger impact than we saw with this pretty massive U.S. regulatory news. So how do you explain that?
I think that's a very good question. I think when China cracked down on mining activity, that sent shockwaves through the industry because a lot of big miners had to relocate or rethink their operations, and that has a lot of impact on the industry. I think in the US, people understand that this is a vibrant democracy. So even if a law is about to be passed that might have some negative impact on the industry, you can still challenge it in court. You can still wait for the next Senate or the next House of Representatives to maybe amend this. So it's not like a uniformity type of view. You have a lot of options in the US to try to make things better. So I think the impact on the industry is perceived as, let's call it as not good, but manageable, as opposed to what's happening in China, which is heavy-handed, and you cannot get away with an order by the government to do something.
On a different topic, we're seeing an uptrend in large Bitcoin transactions on chain. I'm wondering, what do you think is behind these movements? Because we're not sure if they're buying or selling. We just know large sums of Bitcoin are being moved around.
So I think, and again, this is an informed guess, that more institutional players are coming into the space. And because of that, we see larger transactions, we see larger movements of kind of in terms of on-chain movements. And I think that is a good thing. I think that with the public announcements of various hedge funds, various large institutions coming into the space, even in light of everything we just discussed vis-a-vis the infrastructure bill, you would expect to see larger transactions happening. And so I think that is really at the gist of it. And we're going to see more because we are obviously exposed to some other players that are contemplating getting into the space. And so I think just the avalanche of institutional investors will just grow, and you would see that pattern increasing.
So speaking about large transactions, you guys were involved in one involving a lease in Miami. What's happening in Miami? Are you guys moving? How's that been going?
So we're very happy to see Mayor Suarez leading the charge with regards to crypto and really be an evangelist to the industry. With other macro trends that are happening in other major US hubs, you see inflows of talent into Miami, specifically talent that's interested in crypto. And we saw that, and we want that talent to come work at eToro. And so this is why we announced. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, have you taken a space yet? What's going on with the size and how many people you got over there?
So right now we have about 10 employees in South Florida already, and we're expanding. And in terms of space, We're still looking, but I guarantee it will be amazing.